your mind today?
You got it, Tom. I got a question and a comment about Trump supporters. I know a lot of Trump supporters, plumbers, dentists, electricians, good people. And my question to you, Tom, if you are a Trump supporter, in my opinion, you have to be a racist whether you realize it or not, because his whole shtick is racism. He's the ultimate racist. What's your opinion on that, Tom?
It's the foundation of his shtick. Yes, I don't disagree, and my sense of it is that probably the vast majority of Trump supporters are racists.
Whether they realize it or not.
Yeah, well, I think, arguably that's a point. The whole thing about white privilege, the biggest thing about white privilege, is that you don't know it. The benefit, the biggest benefit of white privilege is not having to think about race. And whereas if you're not white in this country, you have to think about race all the time, because it's like you're walking around wearing a mark, and that can cause you to be the victim of everything from workplace discrimination to being shot dead by police or by just some random racist. And so I think it's possible for white people to not be aware of their own racism. It's kind of a stretch, I think, for any thoughtful white person. But I don't know. At the moment, I can't think of anybody who I know as a long-term friend who is a Trump supporter. I don't. Now, I probably have some that I just don't know. But it seems to me that America, or at least in the white community in America, has largely segregated itself into racist/Trump supporters and people who aren't racists and who are appalled by Donald Trump. For the last 5, 6, 7 years, we've seen people, even within families, sorting themselves that way, which is, kind of a tragedy. But yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Tom, in my humble opinion, if you support Trump, you have to really have a little contemplation within yourself and ask yourself why you support a racist.
There are people, I think, and I'm thinking of one guy who calls into this program fairly regularly, who believe that illegal immigration, that people who are here without documentation, are harming middle-class people by lowering wage rates. And that's an argument that it makes a lot of sense. It's not entirely true. There is a small element to it. It's not the main thing that has been depressing wages over the years. It's not even really a secondary thing, but it can play a role. And so there may be some people who are supporting Trump, or at least supporting Trump's policies, not because they're horrified that people are coming in who are brown people, but that they just think that, if they want to stabilize the U.S. population. I get that. I think they're misguided. But I don't think that they are necessarily racists. They just don't have a complete understanding of the American economy. But, that's about it. I don't know. It's a great question, Bob. Is it possible to be a Trump humper, to be a Trump supporter, and not be a racist?
Tom, you're very generous and you have a great show, but I think you're throwing the lifesaver in the water for them.
I may well be, Bob.
That's okay.
I always want to give people the benefit of the doubt. I think if you don't, you're not a fully human. I mean, we have to, let's respect other people's humanity. And I think the other thing that colors my perception, Bob, is that, I lived in Germany for a year and I worked for this German-based charity for, 3 decades. And it was started by a guy who was a Nazi. He had been drafted into the German army when he was 20 years old, Hitler's army. He was sent to Iran as a spy because he spoke Farsi and Arabic. And very early in the war, got parachuted into a British camp and arrested. And he spent the whole war in a prison camp. And during that time, he had this conversion experience. He became a vegetarian. He said, I'll have nothing more to do with war. I'm going to practice peace. He thought becoming a vegetarian would cause his own death from malnutrition. Instead, he got healthier. He went back after the war. He went back to Germany, and he started this international relief agency and communities for war orphans, across Germany, and then spread out all around the world. And I knew several people who worked for him, and one of them, Horst von Heyer, became a very, very good friend, who was a member of the Nazi youth. And these people, he was 16 at the time the war ended. And these were people who I got to know really, really well, and they were thoroughly disgusted with what the Nazis did in retrospect. But they were also swept up in the moment at that time. And you can't say that the Nazis weren't racist. I mean, that was the core of the whole thing, was kill Jews. So I do think that a completely black and white view of our fellow human beings does us a disservice. That people are more nuanced than that, and there's more.
Great story, Thom.
More to individuals. Yeah, thank you, Bob. Thank you. And that kind of informs my perspective. I mean, not altogether. I mean, I'm also American. I grew up in this country. I knew racists growing up. I've seen racism. So anyway, interesting question. Do you think it's possible to be a Trump supporter and not be a racist? We'll be right back.